Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast, brought to you by Agrible, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Well, check it out. This is the sunrise and sunset on our planet right now. And it's an important day for us in the Northern Hemisphere because we're officially starting summer. It's June 21st, and at 5:07 a.m. Central Time, we'll have our summer solstice. And it's interesting. The word solstice actually means sun stop, and it's the highest in latitude that the sun's rays are direct. Now, it's an interesting day. If you live on the North Pole, the sun's actually already been out for 3 straight months, but on this particular day, everywhere north of the Arctic Circle, the sun will actually be out all 24 hours. But this is it, our highest solar elevation angle of the year in the Northern Hemisphere. That's because the sun's rays are coming right in here direct on the Tropic of Cancer, and it's latitude 23.5 degrees north, and that corresponds to the tilt of the Earth on its axis. Now, this is the longest day of the year in terms of daylight hours, and you can see here right across the middle part of the country, we're averaging about 15 hours of daylight. Go farther north, the daylight hours get longer and longer, and in fact, if you get north of the Arctic Circle, look down here at Alaska, we're talking about 24 hours of sunshine. Now, for me, this is an important day because 16 years ago today, I proposed to my wife, and I got to be honest, just to kind of tell you how big of a nerd I am. On that day, I'm kneeling down there with the ring in my hand, and I ask her to marry me. And she looks down at me and she says yes. And I said, "Do you know why I proposed to you on this day?" And she says no. And I said, "Well, it's the longest day of the year, and I just wanted it to last forever." Now, I'm sure you all realize how big of a nerd I actually am because I proposed on a solstice. And honestly, I did it so I'd never forget the date I proposed. Don't use that line. It barely worked for me. Anyways, okay, let's get into what's going on with the weather right now. Here's a radar animation over the last 24 hours. Remember last time we were talking about a couple of big features. One, big surge of moisture coming in to parts of Texas. This is an area that's very dry. We need these thunderstorms in this area. Two, we have a legitimate low pressure system in the middle part of the country. We have not seen this all the way in the last 45, 50 days. I think the last time I saw one was back in April. And as a consequence, we knew this was going to be a very, very wet pattern. And we have seen a lot of flooding. There's been flooding out east. There's been flooding down in Texas. And we're going to have quite a bit more rainfall moving through our fields here, not just on Thursday and Friday, but again next week because of the way the system is set up. So we got to talk about that, all right? Last 72 hours of total accumulated precipitation. Look at this. When you look at my color bar, 1 inch is right here on the colors. And we start to get up into these brighter colors, we're talking over 6 inches. So major flooding down here in Texas, pockets of flooding everywhere from north central Kansas into Nebraska, parts of Iowa, northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin. I mean, we've just have a lot of regions that just got hammered, and we are not done with the precipitation just yet. Now, some of those storms that went through have been quite nasty. I've seen some very strong straight line winds. Look down here in the storm reports in parts of Illinois and Iowa. In fact, I saw some videos just the other day of some corn laid over flat in parts of in central and northwestern Illinois. And then when you get back over here yesterday, so not yesterday, but 2 days ago, we even saw a big outbreak of severe weather, including several tornadoes that were in parts of Colorado and Kansas and some in Nebraska as well. And just to show you what one of them looked like, this is one of the most impressive ones I've seen here in Colorado. We call these elephant trunks, and this was an impressive one. A big rope-like tornado here. A couple of guys on Twitter posting some great pictures of this tornado out here in Colorado. Okay, we got to see where this is going moving forward. So our low pressure center is tucked right in here right now, and it's going to be a slow mover. Remember, this pattern is not moving fast. So watch as I animate this through the next 3.5 days. There it is spinning up, and it just brings repeated showers and storms to Iowa, Illinois, getting over to Indiana. So let's watch this again. Hopefully Missouri gets in on more of this precipitation as well because they're very dry. So there it is, still moving through, and this is not the only one. We're bringing more precipitation in behind this. Watch this one more time. There it goes through. You'll be seeing another system coming in over here. There's another shortwave trough. So you saw it start there in parts of Montana, getting into the Dakotas. This is now Saturday, getting us into Sunday. So there it is again. See that? We have another system to be on the lookout for as we start the week. So our wet pattern just continues as we move forward in this forecast. And certainly this gets into the eastern Corn Belt, Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, over in this region as well. Total accumulated precipitation through Sunday. I'm going to stick with the NAM model on this. I think it's picked up pretty well on the overall precipitation patterns. What we can clearly see is that some regions right in through this area in the part of the Corn Belt are going to be getting, up over 1 to maybe 3+ inches of rain, with some pockets of very, very heavy rain in southern Minnesota, which I know has got quite a bit of waterlogged soil as it is. Northern Illinois, which is also wet in through this area recently, but also getting way down here to Tennessee, Kentucky, even in northern Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas. So this is the first system. Our second one then slides in. See it up here in parts of Montana, getting into Wyoming and South Dakota again. So this is our second system on Monday. Because of all of that cloud cover, because of the overall trough in the jet stream, we are going to be seeing the next 5 days across much of the Corn Belt featuring, these cooler than average temperatures. It's not that it's going to be cold, just cooler than average. And meanwhile, a massive ridge goes way up here into Canada. Sorry, I should probably change my color here. This ridge goes up into Canada, and underneath it we have these two troughs that kind of come in through just like this. And also we have a bit of a ridge over the southeast, keeping things warm down here. So this is this high over low pattern we talked about last time. And I just want to kind of show it to you in animation here. There's our split flow. So this is what the start of the weekend is going to look like in terms of the flow pattern. Some decent onshore flow in British Columbia. Part of the ridge goes way up here into Canada. We have one trough coming in right here. This is our second one. Here's the first one moving out. Because of the ridge down here, southeast tends to stay warm with this particular system. So that's the flow. It's a little complicated, but that's what's going on. Now Monday, I'm watching that next trough kind of slide in from Idaho and Montana right down into parts of Colorado. And out ahead of it, right into this area, we're going to have some pretty decent upper level support for lifting more air. Gulf of Mexico will be open again, and so this whole area that I'm kind of highlighting in through here is going to be seeing another round of showers and storms to start off next week. So we have multiple chances of rain in this area that I've kind of colored in here, not only to finish this week, but to start the next week as this shortwave trough goes from this region right on across the country. So that's our next system by Monday. Now, our big question at this time of year is anything going to happen to shut down the Gulf of Mexico? Are we going to lose our moisture support as we move into the month of June? Because if we get dry in July and August, well, that's of major concern. Even though it's been quite wet and it feels as though we've really set the season up, we all have to be concerned. Well, if we get 30-40 days of dryness, that really dries out that topsoil and could cause some issues. So let's just watch this. Here's your Gulf of Mexico flow through the next 10 days. And the answer to this is no, it doesn't shut down. We see dew points in the 60s and 70s continually returning to the Corn Belt here, at least as projected by the GFS model. And certainly as we finish the month of June, this is now up to June 30th here, look, we got 70-degree dew points screaming all the way up into parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin and Michigan. So we have something going on here, probably favoring a pretty big ridge. We'll take a look at it in a moment, bringing all that moisture back into this area. So with that, let's take a look at what that pattern looks like on day 10. So our longer range models, we know that they're not going to be perfect out that long. That's why we look at their ensemble members, and we've seen a pretty consistent picture, and that is the development of a ridge kind of poking up right into this area as we get a little bit longer term. We got to be watching for the potential for a trough coming in here in the northwest again, but if that happens, that tends to push just a lot of heat and moisture out ahead of it. And my point here is to show you that both the ECMWF and the GFS, which is on the right, are kind of in agreement here. So this is what keeps the Gulf open. This is what returns us towards some warmer temperatures, warmer than average temperatures as we finish out the month of June. But overall, is this pattern going to be detrimental to corn and soybeans across the breadbasket of the country? Well, that's the question we're trying to answer. So when you ask me about my thoughts moving forward as we get into July, here's a couple of things I want to consider here, okay? See that map on the right-hand side? That's the this is the percent of normal precipitation for our last 30 days. And we have got a huge section of the Corn Belt showing up wet. Now, there are certainly pockets that are dry. I'm highlighting a region in through here that's been quite dry. There are still dry pockets in Indiana. There are dry pockets along the Illinois and the Missouri and the Mississippi River in Illinois, Iowa, Missouri. There's also this region over here in parts of in parts of eastern South Dakota that's dry. But we do have a few systems coming through. Certainly this map, because it was made on the 20th here, doesn't reflect the rainfall that we got on the 20th or on the 21st, but we've got a lot of moisture in the ground. So think about that. That's moisture that's there, that's going to be there in some soil that can hold a lot of moisture for quite some time moving forward. But my thoughts about July, we keep trying to say, where's the ridge going to be? We've had a very transient pattern. We've been favoring quite a bit of heat in the central part of the country. And that's an important thing, because if you let persistence be a guide, persistence here being a guide, that may say, hey, we might continue to keep heat in the Corn Belt through the month of July. Things I'll be watching. How active is the southwestern monsoon? Do we build in high atmospheric pressure over the southeast? Do we end up ridging out west, bringing in quite a bit of heat out west? All of these factors contribute to what our July temperatures are going to look like. But at this point, it certainly says that July is going to probably carry a warm bias for much of the Corn Belt. But the question is, does it also carry a dry bias? And there are too many mixed signals at this point to kind of give you a definitive answer. And you've already seen how nonlinear it is. This system that just came through a week ago, we weren't even forecasting it. And that's what makes this all very challenging as we move forward. You ask me, if we keep the Gulf of Mexico open, like we have, ridge riding thunderstorms are going to save the day again. We're going to get those pop-up thunderstorms through a big section of the Corn Belt where it's already wet. I want to bring your attention to something here in the Pacific. I don't care at all about El Nino this time of year, especially because we have this weak Modoki El Nino, and it's not a strong signal. Its correlation with summer weather in the Midwest is below 0.3, so it's not something that I'm going to give too much focus on at this point. I do want you to see this, our main development region right in through here. So we're talking about this area. For hurricanes, it's still quite cold. We're cooler than average in the Caribbean. We have this warm tongue that extends out into this area. So that right there is not the best configuration for heat in the Midwest. But we are seeing a cooling of the waters off the West Coast. And you've seen me present several times to prove a point that if we get cool water here well established, that tends to produce more troughing features out here, which means more ridging across the Midwest. But the years when that happened, we saw a cool tongue of water that was enormous. Like this whole area was very, very cold in 2012. Very, very cold in 2012. Same with 2002. Same with 1988. And we're not quite there just yet. And I've colored over it too much for you to see it. But we're watching this area carefully as we move forward in the forecast. And one last thing to point out here as we wrap this up, I just want to show you what temperature and precipitation anomalies have looked like over the last 30 days globally. We can see that China's not really carried much in the way of a wet or a dry bias. Overall, they've had pretty decent precipitation, a lot of systems going through this. We're focused on this area. And they've been relatively warm. So the start of the growing season here, I think, has been quite favorable. Where we have seen some troubles here would be north of the Black Sea. I just watched an animation of precipitation for the last 7 days. We had one system that tried to come in right on the northern side of the Black Sea, but not too much. They're quite dry there in this region. And look at this, not just north of the Black Sea, it's warm. But get into this region in Russia, look at the cold anomalies we've seen set up in that area. So overall, that's kind of what our global picture looks like. And just to show you the next 10 days, when we think about this very productive region in Ukraine, just north of the Black Sea here, they're all going to continue to favor both a warm and a dry bias moving forward, with much of the precipitation a little bit farther to the east, at least as forecast by the ECMWF. So we're just kind of keeping a global perspective on things as we wrap up this forecast video. And with that, I think I'll go ahead and wrap it up. We hope you look forward to Agrible's next ag forecast coming out on Monday. Head to agrible.com to learn how you can get real-time agronomic and sustainability insights all at the touch of a button. Look forward to giving you another update at the end of the weekend. Thank you.